Hello, welcome to Monte Carlo Tamalo.
Hi, Victoria. We're speaking to you in Spain, where it's about 1,000,000 degrees. How hot is it over there?
Hi, Krista. Well, to be fair, I would complain about the weather, which I have been, but I feel guilty if I was in the UK with the same heat and no aircon, but it is boiling hot here.
Yeah,
It's
it's a bit cooler
unbearable.
where we are. So thanks for doing this in the heat. And it looks beautiful and sunny where you are. So that's great. Now, I'm going to start this when we first met, which was back in the UK. And it was actually in lockdown. We did our kept by the rules. We met at Great Portland Street's Tube and we went for a walk in Regent's Park. And back then you were working in the city, commodities broker. Is that what your
That's
position
correct.
was? Yeah.
That's correct.
But we had connected through you having a presence on social media in kind of health, fitness, and beauty. So explain how you were juggling both of your jobs and passions at that time.
Well, when you have an intense job and there's that saying, burning the candle at both ends. I mean, everything you can imagine with, the city job type commodities broking, it was burning the candle at both ends. But then I really didn't like the lifestyle that came with that. So in every free moment I had, I was working on retreats or wellness events, kind of burning a candle at other ends, trying to balance everything that my professional life was demanded in order to do well. So it was a lot of sitting at a desk. I wouldn't be on one phone, two phones. I'd have my mobile as well. And then it was Yahoo Messenger, very, very professional back in the day. And eventually it turned into Reuters, typing to another client, trying to put together and broker deals.
You had the knowledge of the wellness side of things as well.
Yeah, and it started out basic, like I was really into my yoga. When I was about 16, the way I ate completely changed. I lost 3 stone in 3 months, simply by stopping eating jacket potatoes, cheese, bird's eye chicken. Am I allowed to say brand names? Breaded
Yeah, we're
chicken.
not sponsored by anyone yet.
Bird's eye, hopefully, if you're listening. And it just completely changed. I started eating fruits and vegetables. The only vegetable I used to eat was a jacket potato and sweet corn.
I'm sick of feeling like this. What suddenly prompted it at 16?
I was a really fussy eater. I had the same meal at home every night after school. And if it wasn't a meal at home, it was McDonald's or fish and chips. And so I was just fussy. If something I didn't enjoy eating had touched the plate, I wouldn't want to eat it for the rest of the meal. So I remember my mum was having an operation. I did the food shopping myself and I just saw bananas and thought, let's just try them. And I
At
just
16, you hadn't eaten bananas?
no, I might have satsuma, no pith, sweet corn and jacket potato.
Wow.
I say my mum would be lucky for me to have a bit of raw carrot. I would be
You would
lucky.
be lucky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it affects my mum. She's trying to help me. So almost truly overnight, bit by bit, it didn't take long, my diet changed. And I look back at the way I was eating. Now I look back at the way I was eating then. It was too many nuts. It was too much dried fruit. Lots of fresh fruit as well. But now that my body hasn't had that complete overnight transformation, you simply can't eat like that anymore either, which kind of brings me on to the whole wellness movement where people think you can walk into a health food shop and just because you're in those 4 walls, it's going to be good for you and you can eat 10 times as much.
Well, I think I'm a bit guilty of being not that person and not aware of it, but I know that my morning smoothie probably has about 57 ingredients. I just find another thing I'm like, oh, I should need to get some sea moss gel in there, and it's probably quite highly calorific. But I fight between thinking, well, hemp seeds are good for me, chia seeds are good for me, flax seeds are good for me. I don't put a lot of fruit in it. I put like half a banana, but I know that a lot of what I'm having that morning really sets me up for the day. So if I was being really careful, I would find out what the calories were of that and eat accordingly for the rest of the day. I feel like I'm being healthy, but I don't know.
Well, I suppose it depends on, what is the goal? Do I need to look at calories, for example? And that depends on what the goal is and where you're at. But the biggest thing that actually screamed out to me was, oh my God, how much time did you have to clean up, tidy up, open all the sachets, close all of the sachets again?
It's a ritual.
And this is the thing, I kid myself because I'm not doing this professional desk job anymore. I've not been doing it for 3 or 4 years now. And we are still really, really time poor. Everything's rushed. And I feel like we're always trying to do these things to balance or tip the scales and help us feel that little bit better. Just like you said, having that first thing in the morning, you've set yourself up for the day. And even if you haven't got the good things coming in throughout the day, especially if you're traveling or, we can't carry around a juicer with us in our bags.
I really notice it when I don't have it. I really notice. And even sort of some days when I've had to rush out the door really early, I sometimes come back and I have it for my dinner because I know I want that big handful of raw spinach. I want all those things I put in it. But so going back to you, less about me. So you'd always found that wellness since 16 was really it was really positive for you.
Wellness, and to start with, yoga. And actually it was hot yoga, which I know is a little bit controversial now, and I will always be grateful for that because it really showed me the power of, in such a short space of time, to commit to something. I think I was practicing 4 to 5 times a week.
Well, I did it. The Bikram trend that hit London. I was in the Chalk Farm studio. There was another one. There was Kensal Rise, I think it was. And I went with a friend after work and we were obsessed. We did at least 3 or 4 classes. The weight drops off you. It absolutely. And you feel so bendy. You feel so stretched. I know that Bikram is a controversial man, but it came to London. God, I was obsessed with it like you.
And as a practice, I've got so much to thank that practice for. I do think he was heavily inspired by a different program and routine. Anyway, you can look into that. It's really, really
Have you seen the
interesting.
documentary? Have you seen the Bikram?
Yes.
I mean, I've been in LA and seen the Bikram Center. I don't know if it's even still there because it was such a long time ago. But he was driving around in like gold Rolls Royces.
Some of the quotes the things that he's said, it's just, you can't believe he's saying it seriously. Right? But it makes you accountable. I don't know if going in and there was always a mirror and you couldn't wear too much because it was going to be sweltering hot. I don't know, maybe some people went slightly too extreme, thinking, I'm not going to eat anything. For me, it just made me conscious of what I was eating because I know that I wanted to practice well later and not to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it pushed me into this 3 meals a day, no need to snack, no need to skip meals, plan what I was having. And then what I found was I wasn't standing at the fridge just mindlessly putting something in my face, whether it was a smoothie with 3 ingredients, 57 ingredients, or I don't want to say any particular food, but whatever that thing is, that doesn't actually serve you on a cellular level.
So going back, so we met and then straight after, well, in fact, I'll throw in a funny story. When we met you, straight after we'd been on for our walk, you were going off to meet someone on a first date. And I remember sort of, oh, shall I go? Shall I not? I was like, no, go. And then the next time we actually got to work together, I did my Monte Carlo event and I did an online version where you did, it was when everybody was sort of shut in. So I did a kind of in your element on social media. But then when I could do an event in real life, it was in Eccleston Yards. I can see you laughing.
I'm trying not to laugh and let you feel.
I did a women's health day in Eccleston Yards and you came to teach a face yoga class, which was probably 2 years on from that first date. And how many months pregnant were you?
I would have been about 2 months pregnant.
Yeah, you
so
were.
my bump and I came along that time, the second time we actually physically met.
And so I met the bump then, and you were doing face yoga class to a packed out room. You did, your apartment in your element event, but now you're living in Spain. And Harold's your daughter?
My daughter is now 2. She's 2 years, 2 months. And she's my focus. She is my number one now. And it's mad really to think back to because we developed a friendship really on the phone for me during the lockdowns, when I was walking through the forest, talking about astrology and all sorts of things around that. And then when we actually physically met that day, that I was then going to go on and meet up with this guy that he's not far. He's heard me say this before, that I didn't really want to meet. I was meeting up.
I remember.
I didn't really want to meet anyone at the time. I was kind of just trying to keep my head, knowing that there's plenty of fish out the sea. Like, he seems nice. We'll meet up. And by the second date, that was it. This really nice person who I was happy to have as a friend was the guy that I thought, this could be someone that I will start a family with.
What made you think that it was time to give up being a commodities broker and fully commit to doing this health and wellness?
I think that being realistic, could it actually work on a financial level?
Yeah, it's monetizing it, isn't it?
Yeah, monetizing it, making it work. I mean, I worked really hard in my professional life in London so that, worst case scenario, if things don't go so well, I've always got backup and I've always got just enough to survive. From day one of starting that job, it was never what I wanted to do. Never. And the degree, a lot of people I think now everyone's looking, oh, should I go to university? Shouldn't I? For my professional, I always call the city job the professional one, and then wellness is the other one. The degree that I did, I didn't need it for either branch that I went into. And certainly the city role demanded a lot at the desk. And the only way I'd be able to get off the desk was to go take someone out for a meal or for drinks. And I was never a big drinker. I started drinking when I was 15 and I stopped drinking when I was 15 and a half. I did drink throughout my career, but by anyone else's standards, I didn't drink much and I definitely didn't drink enough. But somehow I managed to make it work. And I guess I just met my clients who related to that. And now I do. I think there's a lot of people that are working um, at these desk jobs, and in the back of their mind or the forefront of their mind is there something better that I can do?
A lot of people that have developed products in the wellness industry, because obviously they've had the financial backing or they've had their own money to be able to do it, but there seemed to have been a massive sort of movement of people that worked in the city and then went into wellness. I mean, you can see why. It's great that you got out when you did, because you've put all that focus and energy into building a new business. So explain how you turned this into a business.
So I want to say it was by accident, but I suppose when I look back, every step kind of makes sense. I was sat at a desk, busy, busy, busy. And then when it was quiet, when it was quiet, the boys would be on the Daily Mail or they'd be looking at boobs. And I wasn't really interested in doing that. So I studied, I did what I could and started developing my business, figuring out what I wanted to do. And at the time, that was all in yoga and retreats. Down the line, after teaching for a certain amount of time, attending retreats as a guest, every holiday I got, I was running my own retreats, either working for somebody else, who was mostly Jason Vale, the Juice Retreats in
Yeah.
Portugal and Turkey. And then I would do my own weekenders in the UK, and I started doing them worldwide, India, Spain, and Turkey. And what I then found was that I was stressing myself out at the desk, doing the job. And then in all of my free time outside of work, trying to look after myself or help other people look after themselves became really, really intense. And that lasted for a certain period of time. And then there came this point where I had to choose, because I could do both, but that would be to the detriment of my own health. So there came a point where I was working really hard in my job, and then every free moment outside of my job to look after me and then help other people look after themselves on the wellness side, that actually it wasn't really looking after me at all, because it was rushing in commodities and then rushing in wellness. So after a certain period of time, I had to choose which way to take. And I chose the wellness route. What then happened, especially with COVID, was that I was running online retreats. By this time, I was teaching yoga, fitness, nutrition, or health coaching, and also facial exercise. And that was severely niche. Not many people knew about it. Everyone else was on Zoom, scrutinizing every part of their face during all the meetings they had to sit in on. And people wanted more of it.
It was it really kicked off. And you're right. It was because we were suddenly on Zoom having meetings and all you were doing is just looking at your own face, which is quite disturbing sometimes. And face yoga became such a thing. And maybe it was also because people couldn't get their injections and they couldn't have all their beauty treatments that they were used to having. So everything had to suddenly become something you could do at home.
But this is even the thing with home workouts. Now, I will teach the odd class in a gym. I love doing in-person events, but going back to the hot yoga, practicing something consistently, if it's a pain to get in the car or to get dressed, get ready, go to the gym or go to whatever class works for you, in the 15-minute drive it takes to get there, you could have done your workout at home.
I miss the community of going to classes. I moved from London to Marlow, where in London I was at cycle 3 or 4 times a week. I loved that community feeling of being at a lot of those places and the YMCA gym. But I've got a reformer in my home now, my weights, a rebounder and a bike. And I can literally, they call it snacking, don't they? Exercise snacking. So, I can quickly do 10, 15 minutes here and there, which, as you say, would be the time it would take to think about getting your kit ready and driving to the gym.
And that's without even factoring the time to obviously brush your teeth so you don't have smelly breath and make sure you've showered so you don't stink. You can look, I don't know how you look when you're doing your home workouts, but I definitely don't check myself in the mirror. I just quickly
know what I look like in my home workouts, but that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. And the same thing with facial exercise. And I definitely think to incentivize somebody to leave their house, get ready to go to a class that might be 20 to 30 minutes. And you can work on your face for longer if you want to. I've done some amazing 90-minute classes where literally you're just working on the face, the scalp, the neck and the shoulders. You feel amazing. But let's be realistic, we don't have that time. We've got like 5 to 10 minutes to quickly do something.
Yeah, if it gets you into a routine, obviously I've worked in the beauty industry for such a long time, and I've been lucky enough to work with people like Michaela and yourself and pick up tips, whether it's putting your spoons in the freezer and holding them over your eyes, or using, what was it yesterday? You had frozen cucumber.
That was one of those times, and all of a sudden, like, where it's so swelteringly hot, I had the cucumber in the back of the fridge. It hadn't gone mushy yet. Because I kid myself, like, we're gonna make a salad, and we end up eating the salad out, you know? Um, I just thought, well, this will be really nice to do a facial sculpting routine without my spoons, because I was actually gonna film something with spoons, and then I don't know what happened with the cucumber. I've got some in the freezer now left over. I'll put some on the back of my neck because I'm really sweating.
Everyone's sticking their face in a bowl of ice, aren't they, at the moment? That's the new
Mm.
thing.
But you
Of
know what's so great about that? So if you can't sleep, especially if it's hot, but even in the winter, what's recommended, I believe this is an Ayurvedic practice, to splash your forehead with cold water. So it's not just the aesthetic where it gives you that sort of
yeah,
snatched, lifted look and, a more defined jawline, brighter eyes. If you can't sleep, splash your forehead with cold water, because the vagus nerve runs through the center of the system, and that will help to activate the vagus nerve. Vagus nerve, the parasympathetic, wind down, rest and digest. It will help you
I
to sleep.
think there's another tip like that. I think it's Katie Brindle, who was also part of the Women's Health Day that we did. And I think it's probably Chinese medicine, but Ayurveda, Chinese medicine is around at the same time. Apparently, washing your feet before you go to bed really helps as well with getting to sleep.
Mm. You know what? Saying that, I think what the feet is one of the things we use them the most without even realizing it, and it's definitely the thing that I neglect the most.
Yeah.
So to in a circular way, to bring my hands down to connect with my feet and to cleanse them. Actually, that's going to close the day for me. I've never heard that. I do wash my feet, by the way. If anyone's thinking like, "What's she doing?"
What kind of things do you find that people are coming to you with and you think, yeah, I'm hearing this over and over again?
The biggest thing, and it's always when I'm working with someone on the nutrition, and generally everybody's got the same goal. They want to improve their body composition, they want to decrease fat, they say they want to lose weight, they want to look a little bit more toned. And the biggest thing, like, we all know what to do. And look, if we don't know what to do, then we put it into Google, don't we? Everyone's Googling these tips. And the biggest thing, the biggest gap that almost everyone is doing or not doing, is they're not following through. We know what to
Yeah.
do. We can
Yeah.
look it up, but we just can't achieve it on a consistent level. We can't do it every day or 5 days a week. So the way that I work with people is, let's find what you can do, even if it's small. And that's when people start getting these miraculous changes.
A chart for eating, and you said, okay, look at your whole week and look at what you're going to eat and give yourself that, whatever you want to call it, a cheat meal or a treat or something that you think you shouldn't be having when you're on a diet, and
Mhm.
have it. Have it once and look forward to that for the rest of the week when you're eating carrots and broccoli and all the things you think, oh, this is boring. But on Friday at lunchtime, I'm going to have this treat. And you said that's been a really successful way for people to get through, knowing that they can have something a little bit naughty sometimes and it
It's
doesn't blow up the whole diet.
it's still the method that works. And I remember at the end of retreats, especially sort of these little weekenders, I'd set aside 20 minutes to go through this. You can see people like, oh, she's going to do a food plan, like, oh, and then something switches when they realize that, oh, I can have my cake and I can eat it too. And it's just planning. Like, if you know on a Sunday night that, okay, Friday, I'm going to go out or I'm going to go for fish and chips. By the way, I've never been so English until I left the country and started going to Spain.
Yeah,
Like,
fish
now
and
you know where I'm
chips.
going to be on a Friday night. But if you plan it, like if I know, okay, Friday night, or maybe it's Thursday night with drinks with work, or I've got this dinner coming up, you have to look at the menu. You have to know exactly what you're going to have. And I know you know this, Krista. And then if you've got that written down, like, right, I'm going to have, and don't have the light version, like I'm going to have the leggera pizza, or I'm going to have the half pizza with the salad in the middle, whatever that thing is. You go mad. Like, I'm going to have X for starters. I'm going to have the burger and the chips with the cheese on the top, and maybe I'm going to have dessert too. I would go easy on the alcohol, one glass of whatever it is. Won't go too crazy, because then we're slipping into extremes. But really have what you're going to have, and then Monday breakfast, Monday lunch, Monday dinner, Tuesday when Steve comes over with his birthday biscuits and birthday cake, you're like, just mindlessly have a snack. Think, well, no, actually, I'm going to have exactly what I want on Friday, the cake that I love.
And if you're not used to eating big blowout meals, it actually makes you think, can't eat like that again for a while
Mm.
because that's also made me feel really lethargic, really, you actually start listening to your body a lot more when you're thinking about what you're putting in.
One of the hardest things, and I had one client in particular, and it was a couple of weeks before she realized, she said, look, I got to Friday or Saturday and I just didn't want to have it. So I didn't. And then she finally, after 2 weeks of doing that, she went, you know what I do by Sunday? I ended up having something I didn't really want to have. And then I felt rubbish. And so I don't call it cheat meal. I call it an off-piste meal. And if there's anyone who skis, they get it. If you're going to go skiing off-piste, and you're not James Bond, you have to plan your route and how you're going to get back on piste. Because otherwise, and you have to have all the equipment you need, because otherwise you're probably going to risk your life. If you need a guide, have a guide with you. And just like with your food, you plan your off-piste, right? Let's just call it fish and chips. I used to avoid fish and chips because I felt really bloated afterwards. I have fish and chips nearly every week, and I might feel bloated that night or a little bit bigger than normal that night, but the next day it's as if I never had it. But getting back on piste the next day, that's the key. It's like falling off the wagon. I'm talking about food falling off the wagon. If you're working with alcohol in a particular way, then maybe this is different. But if you have planned, then you step off the wagon with control. You know exactly what you're doing, exactly where you're going, and you've planned how you're going to get yourself back on track afterwards. So the next day, it might be your smoothie, it might be eggs and salmon, whatever it is that needs to get you snapped back into place so you keep on track, getting yourself closer to your goal. And I do feel that all these plates of food or, activities and things that we might really want to do that don't help us in getting closer to the goal. If you don't know what the goal is, then this is really difficult. You need to know what it is, where you want to get to. So if you know, okay, I want to lose some fat around my middle and I want to tone and strengthen, my abs, then every single choice you get, okay, ask yourself the question, does it get me closer to my goal? So a mindless snack, if you need to eat, then eat. Does having this cake every day of the week get me closer to my goal? Probably not. Does doing 5-minute abs twice a week, or 3 times a week, whatever it is you can do, get me close to my goal? Then yes. Does skipping the session get me close to my goal? Well, probably not. Does getting enough sleep get me close to my goal?
You were talking about alcohol. I haven't drunk now for 5 years and I just feel so much better for it. And do
Mm.
you drink at all now, or do you have your...
No, I don't. And I had to think about it because my partner doesn't drink either. So there's not even a thought process there of I don't drink, I do drink. Living in Spain, there's all this wine and all these lovely flavors maybe to try. There hasn't been a temptation. I
Yeah.
sometimes feel, I really should know, that part of the culture. I know it from the past, back from when I was doing my job, because that was one of the perks of doing the job. You got to try all these different wines, but there's just no pull for me. I don't know about you, but I know
I
I
don't
speak
miss it.
to people, they want to give up, but they just love it.
Yeah, I don't. I was never a massive drinker. There had my times that, I lived in Soho for like 30 years and went out and had some good old parties. Yeah.
It's a
So
big
I kind
deal.
of did indulge, but I never had a drink problem. I just, was working in fashion and entertainment industry where, you pretty much didn't pay for a drink everywhere you went. So it was very easy to just walk in and be handed a glass of champagne. And that's how I sort of first gave it up, actually, years and years ago. I just thought, God, I've had a drink every day this week. And I've always been into sort of, health and wellness. But as you say, you kind of, you have your foot in both camps sometimes in different industries you work in. So I gave up for a month and I thought, God, this feels so good. I feel really good not waking up with a headache. And obviously, as we're getting older, everything just feels worse. So I then gave up for a year, and it was harder then because no one else was really not drinking. I'm probably going like 10 years back.
That's the
But
thing. People think it's weird,
people
to
do
say
think
the
it's...
least.
Yeah, and there wasn't even like ginger beer, and I was on like fizzy water all the time, probably, or like really sugary mocktails that people think are a great alternative. But after that year, I did go back to drinking every now and again, but I didn't want as much. So I'd have a glass maybe, and I wouldn't even want to finish it. And so, and then kind of when COVID came, and I carried on like that for a few years, like having a drink now and again, but not often. And then COVID came and I was on my own in France for a year. And so I didn't drink on my own. So that was like this other year that I just thought, okay. And it was someone's birthday after we were allowed to celebrate and, mix again. And I remember there was a bottle of champagne and I said, oh, just pour me a little inch and I'll just toast. And I had one sip and my head went, and I thought, okay, my body has said, you don't want alcohol anymore. And that was it. So yeah, I don't miss it at all. And there's there's a non-alcoholic Aperol Spritz. Have you tried that?
No, see, this is the thing. Do you remember Schlur? I remember Schlur.
Yes.
Before I even had a glass of wine, a friend I lived with at uni, she was like, I love winding down with a glass of wine. And I just didn't get it. So I've never been a drinker. The only reason really I would have a drink is because other people, and I felt, oh, it's easier just to have one. Or
Yeah.
I want to know what this flavor tastes like. I mean,
Yeah,
in my
I've never
job, I
been
had to drink.
I've never been that, oh, G&T on a Friday. Like, just not that person.
Yeah.
See, having spent lots of time in France and summers in France, I drink so much rosé, not even really enjoying it. And you get to September, and even just looking at a glass of pink wine just gives you a headache. So that
When
was
a lot
quite
of
easy
people
to
come
give
over
that
on
up.
holiday, they must find it crazy, and everyone must want to go out for a drink with you, right? So
Well,
it's
no, they
tricky to
don't,
get
because they
rid of
know
it.
I don't drink, so no one wants to go out for a drink with me. But all my friends in France find it peculiar. But, they've accepted it now that I don't drink. And, if there's somewhere that has a kombucha, it's like, hang out the bunting that I can have something that is a bit different. So yeah, just finding alternatives. But no, I don't miss it at all. And more people are drinking less, and especially women. We lose the digestive enzyme that helps break down alcohol when we hit menopause. I've heard
I
that's
didn't
a
know
thing.
that.
So it actually does feel like your body is taking in toxins.
So you telling me that, because this is one bit of information I would give my clients when they're like, oh no, I know I shouldn't drink, but I want to drink, it's difficult. As soon as you tell them this bit that metabolizing fat becomes heavily compromised as soon as you've had a bit of alcohol, all of a sudden it's a lot easier for them not to drink. Now, as we hit that age, if we can't even metabolize that alcohol, then of course we're holding on to fat. That now makes sense. Then it puts the choice back, you know, because we always have a choice. I mean, maybe you can't get up having that drink. But I really couldn't. What I used to do in the end was, rather than just, like everyone kept topping up the wine. I remember one man put my hand over, you just put over your hand over your glass, right? This is a colleague of mine. He got the bottle and he's like trying to give me this drink.
It's men, I think, more, isn't it? I've been in situations where, people have really had a go at me for not drinking. I'm like, it's my body. What difference does it make to you?
I would get to 3 or 4 in the morning and I'd still be in the nightclub. And I remember sitting there thinking, like, looking at the time, if I leave now, will my boss knock me on my bonus this trimester? And by the way, there was one client left and he wasn't even my client. It's one of those ones where you've got to keep up with the Joneses, right? And
I never had that city pressure that I'm sure was going on when you were working there. But fashion business, it was, drugs and
yeah,
alcohol. I didn't ever take anything. I think it's definitely changed with a different generation. It's so nice to see a lot of younger kids just aren't drinking as much.
I agree. It's just not a thing anymore. If you don't drink, no one's going to pause before they say the next sentence. I remember when I was working, and I think to a certain extent it does still exist, the smoking circle. Like, a lot of deals and a lot of conversations would take place when people went out to get cigarettes. It took me years to clock that and notice that. I didn't start smoking.
No, we're smoking in France now. I think in July, it's going to be illegal to even smoke on the beach now. And that's in France.
I'm delighted to hear that.
Yeah, me too. I don't care who I offend. I think people that smoke should wear a glass bubble and keep their smoke within their own bubble, like the Jetsons.
I wonder if they carry on smoking.
I guess to sort of wrap up and to leave, we could chat all day about what's healthy and what isn't. Is there something that you would advise people? Because obviously this podcast is about something that you plan to do, but then the curveballs and the pivots and the things that happened along the way that meant that you're now living in Spain with your little girl and you're working in a beautiful environment. You're looking after your body. You're looking at your family's health and wellness. You're away from that sort of toxic culture. Do you wish you'd done it sooner? Do you feel like you did it in the right way? And is there any advice you would say to someone who maybe is in the same position as you that thinks, I'm really not happy with what I'm doing? How do I escape it? What's the next steps?
I definitely believe that timing is always right, because you can say, oh, I should have done this, should have done that. You never know how something's going to turn out had you done it the other way around. I certainly, yeah. And I certainly know that every time I've left a job, I've looked back and gone, because it takes time, it takes guts, right? It can take months, if not years, to finally leave that thing that you hate, it doesn't serve you. Relationships even more so. And then you look back, you go, I should have left sooner, the job or the person. But you have to be ready. And whether that means emotionally ready or have that financial stability or have the new business built just at the right level so that you can, when you jump, And there has to be an element of risk. And there is this leap. At least when you land, you know you're landing safely. That's really important. And also, you can always change your mind. But if you left well, you can always go back, which is what I did.
If you change one direction, you can change back if you want, but also you probably won't. I think because I've always started new businesses, and if I've had an idea of something, I want to give it a go. And I think that's just obviously in my nature. Whereas a lot of people I speak to, they'd be like, oh my God, I'm too scared to start my own business. I'm like, why not? I'm not saying that I've had thousands of pounds to back me, but you can find a way to do things. You don't have to have an investor and a bank loan to do everything.
I think I think a lot of people, I certainly did a while ago, really think, oh God, what can I do? What can I do? And if there's this desperation of thinking, what can I do? You're never really going to find what's going to work. Sometimes the answer is staring you in the face. And also, sometimes the timing has to be right. So right now, every day, things change. Having a daughter has changed everything. In the past, I could run 3 different businesses at the same time. Everything was full throttle and that was okay. The thing that might have, had to take a back seat might have been my personal routine, taking care of my body, my physical wellness. But now, and I actually listened to a podcast, lady, her name is Muna Azara, and she has slightly older children now. They're not my daughter's age, but she said, I could work a lot harder. I could do more in my business, but I want to channel most of my energy and most of my love into my children. And so that's what I do. And my business does what it does, and that's okay. And to give yourself that permission to not be at full throttle. My cylinders are not firing 100%. That's absolutely fine.
But you're listening to your body, you're listening to your head, you're listening to your heart. And that's being in a really good place, isn't it?
And the best bit of advice I could give, and you can apply this to, the diet regime, your training regime, your work, but particularly to how you are, how you feel, how you look. How you feel and how you look is at the heart of how you engage with other people, and then how you perform at work. There's no point in being super, 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 super healthy if it makes you super unhappy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And final question. How's your daughter's eating habits? Have you got her onto vegetables at an early age so she doesn't turn out like 15 or 16 going, oh, maybe I'll eat a banana?
Let's just say that the eating has gone very well. I actually, I didn't start weaning her onto food until she was about 9 or 10 months. And the doctor that we took her to, this was later, he actually said, well, if you wanted to, you could have breastfed up until a year, exclusively breastfed, because it's in that first year that they're developing their immune system. So just to have milk until then is very good. So now I kind of feel like, oh, she's gone on for longer. But no, her eating is great. Thank you so much, Krista. It's lovely to see you.
Okay, thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.